Fourth year of medical school felt like a huge change from the first 3 years, so I wanted to make this video to share about 4 unique aspects of fourth year, aka first clinical year of medical school in New Zealand, to help your preparation for fourth year. If you're new to this channel, welcome. I'm Esther, a fifth year medical student at Otago University, and my goal is to share my experience to equip you with valuable knowledge for your health site or medical school journey. And if that interests you, hit the subscribe button. We'll start the video by giving an overview of the medical school years at Otago, and then I'll go through 4 big areas where fourth year medical school is different to previous years and how to best prepare for that transition. Throughout this video, I will mention some key take-home points, and I'll finish this video with some encouragement for those who are starting fourth year. But firstly, why is there a big transition? Well, let's start with an overview of the medical school years at Otago to answer this question. In a nutshell, first year is the health science year, and the purpose of this is to build foundational knowledge. In second and third year, this is predominantly theory-based, where you're learning from lectures and tutorials, focusing on building a solid knowledge base. But you're also learning some practical clinical skills here and there. In fourth and fifth year, there are still lectures and tutorials, but you're starting to spend a lot more time in the clinical environment and learning to apply that knowledge to real patients. And in sixth year, in trainee intern year, this is when you're starting to become very focused on preparing yourself to being a doctor. So that's an overview, and you can kind of see that the transition from third year, a study-dominant learning environment, to fourth year, where you're starting to become more in the clinical environment, would be quite a transition. So that's why we're talking about it today. And it might seem a little bit overwhelming, but just remember to take your time and be patient with yourself, and you can accomplish a lot more than you know. So now we're going to talk about the first big area where things are different, and that is rotations. Similar to second and third year, your year is broken down into different subspecialties: musculoskeletal system, cardiology, etc. I say that order because that's how second year starts. But the difference in fourth year is that it's rotation based, where the class is divided into groups, and each group does different rotations at the same time, and then you rotate around. In other words, all the groups are learning the same topics and skills, but at different times of the year. And it can be pretty easy to compare and go, oh, this person is learning so much more cool stuff than I am on this rotation. But just remember that eventually you will get to learn everything in the year and learn all the practical skills that you need. And secondly, rotations can definitely vary in terms of busyness. So your friends might be on having a chill weekend because they're on a less intense rotation, while you've got to buckle down and study because you're on a more intense rotation, and vice versa. Also, some rotations require consistent early mornings, for example the surgery rotation or the cardio respiratory run, while others start later in the day. So how fast you transition into fourth year is going to depend on what rotations you start on, and also you could have placements at different hospitals around the city depending on where you're studying medicine. Moving on to the second big difference is the amount of people interaction. In fourth year, there is just much more interactions with people. On top of interacting with your tutors and with your classmates, in fourth year, you're interacting with health professionals in the clinical environment, from doctors, nurses, allied health professionals, other staff, and of course patients. And in the beginning, I really got pushed out of my comfort zone many times, from finally mustering up the courage to talk to a patient by myself, to asking if it's okay to examine them, to doing my first basic procedure in the clinical environment, to presenting a patient's story to a big team of doctors during ward rounds. In fact, I remember in my first few weeks of clinical rotations that I felt like I've never been pushed out of my comfort zone as much as during those weeks. But after a few times, I gradually felt more comfortable talking with patients and health professionals. And so if you're going into this soon, just remember that you will gradually become more comfortable with the environment. Don't expect to get used to it straight away, and definitely be patient with yourself. I realize that the vast majority of doctors and patients are so kind. They're on our side and they're really just want to help us to learn. And for the few patients who don't feel comfortable with a student talking to them, it's okay. It's important that we don't take it personally. After all, they're quite likely going through a challenging time. So some key take-home points. It's completely normal to be nervous, and the vast majority of doctors and patients are very willing to help us learn. The third big difference in fourth year relates to time, and a big one is time flexibility. In fourth year, overall, in my experience, it was less structured, and there was a greater focus on self-study and taking the initiative for our own learning. Time is more flexible, and sometimes there can be quite a bit to juggle. Hence, time management is quite an important skill. The goal is to spend a good amount of time with patients, complete all the assignments, and be well prepared for all the tests. And it's important to balance all of those. And also, there are some activities that are compulsory that aren't timetabled. So there's some requirements to practice scheduling things in ourselves. There's also earlier starts. In second and third year, at least in Otago, classes started around 9 o'clock or later. However, in fourth year, some rotations have consistent early starts. For example, surgery started around 8 or earlier. And it might not seem early for some of you guys, but if you're a night owl like me, it can be quite a big difference. So it's good to get into a good sleeping routine early. So there will be opportunities to see what the hospital is like in the evenings or in the weekends as well. Whereas in second and third year, things were mainly Monday to Friday and during like normal hours. So some take-home points is it's important to try to schedule compulsory things earlier in the rotation so that you're less stressed at the end of the run when a lot of things are due. And that's speaking from personal experience. And also practice getting up early consistently if you don't do that naturally. The final fourth key difference is place. When starting out in the clinical environment, it's so easy to get lost because the hospital is just so big and there's just so many different places where things can be. But don't worry, you will get used to it and gradually be able to find your way around. And as you move around the different rotations, things will be in different places. So even if at the end of the year you haven't mastered the whole hospital, it's okay. Take-home points is to be patient with yourself as you're finding your way around. And a big tip is that if you have a class or a clinical activity in a new place, try to arrive early to give yourself a bit of buffer time, or go and find the place the day before so that you will arrive on time. And always bring your ID for access. Finally, I just wanted to say something specifically for those who are starting clinical year soon. As we've discussed, the clinical environment is quite different from the theory-based learning in previous years, and it's very normal to feel nervous beforehand. That was me at the start of the year. Just remember that you've come this far and you will have it in you to learn how to adapt. And even if you don't feel that way, remember that you're not alone. Your classmates are on this journey too. And remember that most doctors and patients are very kind and will do what they can to help you. And don't forget the support from the medical school staff and from your friends and family as well. The transition leap can take a while, and it depends on what rotations you start on. I started on the surgery rotation and it felt like diving into the deep end of the swimming pool. It probably took me about half a year to fully enjoy my clinical year. I did enjoy parts of it earlier on, but I definitely felt more at home at around the half-year mark, and that transition leap would be different for everyone. The most important thing is just, again, be patient with yourself and you'll gradually become more comfortable with the environment. I hope this video was helpful. Thanks so much for watching, and I'm planning on making some more videos on clinical years. So if you want more videos on my experience at medical school and health sci, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.